Well, hello everyone, and welcome to a special edition of Highlander Hoops Weekly. I'm your host, Chris Stoner. Highlander Hoops Weekly proudly presented by the Pete Palmer Law Office, located on Scribner Drive in New Albany. Palmer Law, a proud supporter not only of Highlander basketball, but all Highlander athletics here at Floyd Central. As mentioned, this is a special edition of the show, and we are pleased to be joined by Floyd Central Principal Dr. Rob Willman for this special edition. Rob, thanks so much for joining us.
Pleasure to be here. Thanks for asking.
Coming off the heels of Wednesday night's victory over Columbus East, 15th straight win for the basketball team, Hoosier Hills Conference Championship, the first outright title for Floyd Central boys basketball since 1986. Talked to Coach Sturgeon, after the game, some players, what's that mean? To you as principal, what's that mean to not just Floyd Central, but the community?
I think it means a lot of different things to a lot of different people. I think for the program itself, it means validation for the amount of time and effort that they put into this. I think a lot of people, there are people out there that have been waiting for this since 1989. And it's really, I know Coach Sturgeon would say this is just a secondary goal of what it is that they want to do. Of course, they want to do well in the postseason. That's their main goal. For others, it's a cue that we are we're one of the better powers or one of the better teams in the area. So I think number one, validation is the biggest thing, that we tried to get over that hump and to get up there with some of the better teams. Of course, we haven't won a state title like New Albany or anything like that, but that we're relevant again. Not to say that we haven't been the last few years, but I think this season definitely makes that statement.
Well, something that's also relevant is the school spirit here at Floyd Central, and anybody could see that by coming to a game. I know some fans, even the students of Columbus East that traveled, they made some comments like, wow, we've got to hand it to the Kilt crew there in the green zone and the big ESPN show last night. And with all the distractions in the year 2018 for teenagers, school spirit, particularly at larger schools, is almost considered an old-fashioned notion. Dare I say, not cool anymore to kids. But at Floyd Central, not only is school spirit alive and well, but definitely seems to be the cool thing to go to on a Friday or Saturday night as far as a ball game. How have you and Athletic Director Jeff Sequeira and the rest of your staff, how have you made that happen? How have you made that culture an in thing here at Floyd?
Well, I'd love to take all the credit for that, but I think Mr. Sequeira, he did a lot of that. We got together last year and talked about what our expectations are with students, what it is that we want from the students. I felt like several years before that there really was no purpose for the student section. That a lot of the students they were disorganized. There wasn't any purpose to it. For me, the purpose is to help your team win, is to give your guys confidence, not necessarily to ridicule the other team, not to heckle or necessarily. Of course, kids are going to yell things like air ball and all of that stuff. That's I guess acceptable or pretty much the norm. But what are we going to do to give our guys confidence, get our guys pumped up, make it a real advantage to be at home? We're going to want them to. You cheer against the officials or you cheer against the other team, and I think all that does is build sort of a victimization of your own team, and it doesn't help. Whereas you have that crowd behind you, and it really helps. And I can point to the Jasper game last year, where we take that team into overtime, and you got the whole crowd, saying, "I believe we will win," and whether that put us over the top, it sure seemed like it. So how did we build that? I think we started off by targeting a certain group of kids. I think Chandler Stumler was a big part of that last year. I don't know if Chandler's listening right now, but he's at West Virginia, and he really helped spearhead that sort of thing, in addition to a lot of other kids. And we met weekly. We talked about what sort of expectations that we have, what we would like for them to do. And that, in combination with the winning ways, the winning tradition that has been rekindled, has helped do what you see on Fridays and Saturdays.
Well, to follow that up in this day and age where, and no offense, but administrators are often consumed with political correctness, playing it safe, you guys have done a great job empowering the students, handing them a live mic, Wednesday night with the ESPN set, putting the spotlight on them and trusting them to do the right thing, to do what's been rehearsed and talked about, and certain standards, as you alluded to. And I think a big thing there, not trying to answer the question for you, but is a good communication between yourself and students and student leaders. What made you decide to make that a priority as principal of Floyd Central?
Well, I think anytime you empower kids, you get the best out of them. That is true. We stress to them that said, hey, anything you do out there, we have to be able to defend. We have to go out and if you do something that is inappropriate, we can't defend that. So don't make us look bad, or we're gonna have to take you off the kill crew area, because you are pretty much front and center right there. And a lot of the fans have liked that. I must say, as an administrator, it does make me a little nervous sometimes with kids out there. But once again, once you tell them what your expectations are and what the objectives are, I think they basically fall in line. Yeah, you have some times where kids maybe don't do what they're supposed to do, but the overwhelming feedback that we've got has been very positive. But yeah, we try to be as politically correct, I guess, as we can, and not try to offend anybody. And I have my administrator never say anything interesting policy in check a lot of the time, because we do have to be careful with what we say, because we represent the school. But I do think our kids for the most part do a nice job with that responsibility.
So you didn't have a kill switch in your pocket to knock the microphone out?
It's scripted. So they did make some alterations. They did do some ad-libbing, but it wasn't. It was something I could live with, And I won't tell you what the ad-libs were.
Well, one of the many things that the Floyd Central administration, I think, should be complimented for, again, in this day and age and at a big school, is encouraging kids to play multiple sports. At small schools, it's a necessity to keep programs thriving. However, at big schools, specialization is common. Sure. A lot of times, head coaches expect it. The ADs look the other way. The principals look the other way. And there's that attitude of, hey, I've got plenty of kids to pick from. You better be playing my sport 12 months out of the year. But that's another priority that you have, Mr. Sequeira has as well, is to encourage kids to play multiple sports. Again, kind of the same question, but different topic. What drove you to make that a priority at Floyd Central?
Well, and that was a lot of Jeff and I feel very strongly that way. I think a lot of that came out of having boys or having kids that are athletes. I know, of course, Jeff's oldest daughter, or his daughter, was a cheerleader and did track as well, and of course Braxton does just about everything. And my son, just growing up, I wanted them to be able to. I didn't want them to specialize, and I even felt that, and I know Jeff felt that at a young age for Braxton, and the same thing with me and with Trace, is the pull to try to specialize at a young age, and we were really against that, because both of us were. And I'm sure you were too, multi-sport athlete, maybe at least two sports in high school, and that was very important to me, or at least maybe not even a dual sport athlete, but you're involved in other things. You're just not going to play football, or you're just not going to play basketball, or maybe you're just not going to be in a play. We want kids to do that, because there's only a certain window in your life when it's acceptable to do that, to participate in sports. So you want to do it as long as you can.
Well, this is called Highlander Hoops Weekly, but we like to talk about the other sports as much as we can, and we are in Indiana, southern Indiana, so basketball is going to, get all of the press, if you will. But if we could talk about the fall sports for a moment. I know the football team had a successful season, ran into the eventual state champions in the sectional championship game, and if you can, just elaborate a little bit on the success that the Floyd Central sports had in the fall season.
Yeah, I mean, we have, as I'm looking at my list here, I keep a running total on that, and we have 6. Well, actually more than that. Yeah, 7 if you count boys swimming that just won sectional last week. Sectional champions so far, and Jeff might dispute that because he probably has the official book on that. But girls golf, boys tennis, girls cross country had a fantastic year. Matter of fact, they won the regional and had several girls place or do well at the state finals. Girls soccer won, as well as wrestling. Wrestling won a couple of weeks ago in a new format. They got moved out of their Jeffersonville sectional and got moved to Southridge, so had a little bit tougher road there. And then, of course, girls and boys swimming. I mean, they clearly dominated the field, especially the boys who won. I think it was maybe 8 events, 8 out of 14, something like that, something crazy last week. And so they go to the state finals tomorrow and Saturday. So.
I wanted to talk about your background for a little bit, if you will. You coached wrestling here for 7 years, 2 years at St. X. You've also been a football coach at different levels. I know assistant principal Joe Velker, Dr. Velker. I'm sorry if we have him on the show. I can't.
He's off the clock.
I can't call him doctor.
Okay.
Though.
Right.
I'll call him coach, but not not doctor. But he won't mind, I'm sure. But Joe was a girls basketball coach here and coached them to their most successful season ever, getting to the Final Four. And then, of course, Jeff Sequeira, he is in athletics, and he was a college athlete in his day playing college baseball. What kind of advantage do you think that you guys have, and other staff members that you can mention that I haven't mentioned or don't know, that you were involved in athletics? Obviously, academics is a priority as well. The fine arts program is just booming here. But in the competitive world, and there's different competitions, whether you're in athletics, whether you're in academics, whether you're in the fine arts, it's still competing, but it's in different ways. How does kind of being well-rounded, if you will, help you guys just continue to make Floyd Central grow in all areas?
How does it be well-rounded from my athletic background?
Right.
Well, from the athletic standpoint, and this, I think this goes for for somebody wanting to be an administrator. I think being involved in any of those things you talked about, whether it be athletics or performing arts and all of any of that, co-curricular activities, it really helps you in regard to the time aspect. When you're in coaching, there is a lot of time, a gigantic amount of time away from your house, maybe from your family. Performing arts is the same thing. You are at school all the time, and so it gets you prepared for that administrative role, and it also gives you a very good indication of what these other people that are here at all hours are doing. So going into administration, I had a really good idea of how Kirk Hamsley spent his days, of how Casey LeDuc spent his days, and I didn't understand the intricacies of the performing arts program, but I understood the commitment and the time that they're putting in, and what it is that they're leaving at home. So I think that's an important thing. I think that me becoming principal might have made some people nervous, because you have a lot of people in. We have a very talented performing arts group. And so that maybe they thought that I would favor that above the other, and I won't downplay the things that I like. I mean, I love, I'm a big high school football fan. I love high school sports, but I really, really like performing arts too. I mean, that's not something that I was able to do on a regular basis when I was into coaching. It wasn't part of the time commitment. But man, getting into this and just seeing the talent and the amount of work that these kids put into that has been a real treat.
Our most recent show, we talked with the middle school boys coach, Brett Eads, and talked to him about the delicacy of middle school coaching and what have you, young boys turning into young men and all, just trying to teach the X's and O's, but also trying to teach them to compete, which is maybe something when you and I were kids that it just seemed to come naturally to athletes. But in today's world, sometimes competing is pushed to the side, and in the society everybody gets a trophy or just be happy and win or lose or what have you. And we talked about that and how much from being a coach, now being an administrator, where do you find yourself talking to kids about competing, not just on the hardwood or the gridiron or the wrestling mat, but in the classroom? As you mentioned, the fine arts, when they're practicing for the play till late hours, they're competing. They want to put on the best show possible. I've been here on Sundays and flags and band and orchestra. They're here, practicing at all hours. And when you sum all that up, I mean, that's competing.
Right. Yeah, I guess. I think too, I'd rather not focus too much on how kids are doing relative to others necessarily. I think we want to focus on how well they're doing compared to themselves. We want to have a certain level that we get kids to, and we think that all kids can succeed. So really, if you're talking about in the classroom, I'm a big proponent on, we don't grade on the curve anymore, so you don't have a certain number of A's and all that stuff. So we want all kids to reach a certain standard. If they reach a standard, then we want them to go above and beyond to the next possible standard there. So our mission statement, every student successfully completes high school. Well, it doesn't say graduates, because not every student can do that for maybe some cognitive ability or things like that. So how are we going to be successful as a school? A student that should get an academic honors diploma but gets a minimum diploma, then that means we're not successful. We want that student to reach that height. So really, I think that I'd rather have the students focus on reaching new levels of excellence rather than focus so much on how they're doing relative to others. I think there's room for everybody to be successful at high school, and that's one of the good things about maybe the way the laws are structured now, that we have to pay attention to every kid. We just don't pay attention to the top 10%. We have to pay attention to those students who struggle, the mid-level and the upper level, and get them to new heights. Did I answer your question?
You did, absolutely.
Okay.
Well, hey, let's bring this to a close and just circle back to basketball real quick. You said something before we press record that I just wanted to touch on is how successful the boys basketball team has been, and it's just been fun to watch them, not just because they're 22-1 and very talented, but they're likable kids. The senior class is a strong class, but all four classes, they're just likable kids. They're humble, at least my experiences with them. They can be a little goofy, which is just fun. And if you could talk about and maybe hone in, if you would, on the seniors a little bit, just they're likable kids, and just expound on that a little. Yeah,
I mean, and I don't spend a whole lot of time talking to them, because I'm the principal, and so I'm not really all that cool to be around. But I do, just observing them, they always have a smile on their face. I think last time you talked to was it Gabe Shireman, and they talked about Hobson just being goofy, and he is. I don't know Brendan all that well, but he's just got that goofy smile on his face all the time. Always, kids in a good mood, and it looks like they don't really allow any one or two particular kids to get too full of themselves. They kind of rip on each other enough to sort of bring everybody down to earth. And you can see that on the court, where one particular player is not having a very good game, and somebody else will step it up. And they look like they have such a good time. And there are teams that we play against, or teams that I've seen before, where they're just not enjoying themselves, and they don't really look like they like to get sweaty, And this team is the complete other way. I mean, they run up and down the floor, they get on the floor, they do what coach asks them to do, and it is a great dynamic to see, and you just want to see them succeed.
One more thing, can you imagine what the sectional is going to be like next week? The environment, I mean. Yeah, I can. It will be exciting, and I think they asked me. The news reporter asked me from, I think, WDRB, who's going to win the game? What's your prediction? And I think the biggest thing that I want from this is, one team's going to win, one team's going to lose, and if we make it to the final, great, whatever. But I want people walking out of that gym saying, "Wow, this is the best of high school sports has to offer." And I definitely think when people walked out of that gym back in December, they would say that. And many nights you would come to an FC game. I would hope that people would say that. Should be great. Sectional starts Tuesday, 6 o'clock, Floyd and Bedford in Game 1. Drive up and support your Highlanders. It's an easy drive. You better get a ticket. They may already all be gone.
Yeah.
All may be gone. Maybe you ought to get one for $100 on the sidewalk.
Maybe. I'm sure they're going on Craigslist.
That's exactly right. Well, Dr. Willman, thanks so much for joining us. Appreciate it. This special edition of Highlander Hoops Weekly presented by the Pete Palmer Law Office located on Scribner Drive in New Albany, coming to you from the glorious and lavish Palmer Office Recording Studios. It just gets better every week. Cupcakes, once again.
The snacks were great. Yeah, thanks, Pete.
It was good stuff. Thanks so much, Pete. Well, for Dr. Willman, I'm Chris Stoner saying so long, and we will talk to you next week. Have a good night, everybody.